It begins without warning, hidden deep inside the body. One cell turns against the organism that created it, then another follows, and then another, until something microscopic grows powerful enough to change a life forever. You walk into a doctor's office and hear the words no human being ever wants directed at them. You have cancer. It has taken millions of lives, torn entire families apart, and remains one of the most relentless threats our species has ever faced. Most people think of cancer as a modern disease, something humanity created through processed food, polluted air, industrial chemicals, and increasingly sedentary lives. And yes, all of those factors can play a role. But cancer's history stretches much further back than our factories, cities, or even civilization itself. In 2016, researchers discovered an ancient foot bone inside a cave in South Africa. It belonged to an early human ancestor, possibly an Australopithecus or an early member of the Homo genus. The bone was approximately 1.7 million years old, yet hidden inside, it was unmistakable evidence of a malignant tumor. This was not damage from an injury, a natural fracture, or ordinary wear accumulated over a lifetime. It was osteosarcoma, an aggressive form of bone cancer. The disease was growing inside a creature that walked across the earth long before modern humans even existed. The same research also revealed a benign tumor inside the spinal column of another ancient skeleton from roughly the same period, nearly 2 million years ago, before cities, agriculture, pollution, or processed food. Cancer was already there. But this discovery reveals only a tiny piece of a much larger and darker story. Cancer most often develops in soft tissue, including organs, skin, blood, and other parts of the body that rarely survive the passage of time. Soft tissue does not fossilize like bone. Within centuries, it usually decays and disappears completely, taking almost every trace of disease with it. Bones are often the only evidence left behind. That means the cases scientists discover in the fossil record represent only a small fraction of all the cancers that must have existed throughout ancient history. This is exactly why preserved mummies are so valuable to modern researchers. Unlike ordinary skeletons, mummified bodies can retain organs and other soft tissue for thousands of years. When scientists used CT scans to examine 137 ancient Egyptian mummies, they discovered evidence of cancer in several of them. Tumors that had remained hidden for thousands of years suddenly became visible through modern medical technology. But physical remains are not the only evidence showing that ancient people confronted this disease. They also wrote about it. The Edwin Smith Papyrus, an Egyptian medical document written around 1600 BC, contains descriptions of tumors found in the breast. At the end of one case, the ancient physician recorded a brutally simple conclusion: there is no treatment. Those words were written nearly 4,000 years ago. The physician was not proposing a theory or imagining what the disease might look like. He had witnessed it with his own eyes. Centuries later, the Greek physician Hippocrates gave the disease a name. He used the Greek word karkinos, meaning crab, because the swollen veins surrounding some tumors stretched outward like the legs of a crab. Much later, the Roman physician Celsus translated that term into the Latin word cancer. That ancient name traveled through centuries of medical history and remains with us today. So why does cancer exist in the first place? The answer is as simple as it is unsettling. Cancer exists because life itself exists. Every time a cell divides, it must create a new copy of its DNA. But that copying process is not flawless, and small mistakes can occur along the way. Most of the time, the body detects those errors, repairs the damage, or destroys the abnormal cell before it becomes dangerous. Sometimes, however, a single mistake slips through the body's defenses. That damaged cell begins multiplying without control, creating more corrupted copies of itself. Eventually, those cells accumulate, form a tumor, and begin invading nearby tissue. The more cells an organism has, and the longer it remains alive, the more opportunities there are for one of these biological errors to escape unnoticed. That is why scientists have discovered cancer in dinosaurs, ancient fish, and countless other living creatures. Even trees can develop abnormal growths that resemble cancer. In a sense, cancer is the shadow cast by cellular life, the unavoidable risk of building a body from cells that must constantly reproduce. Does that mean ancient humans experienced less cancer than people do today? They probably did, but not entirely for the reasons most people assume. The main explanation is brutally simple. Ancient humans usually died young. Infections, predators, untreated wounds, starvation, and countless other dangers often ended their lives before cancer had enough time to develop. The average life expectancy of a prehistoric human was estimated to be somewhere between 25 and 35 years. Most cancers, however, become far more common after the age of 50. If an infected tooth killed someone at 28, cancer never had the opportunity to become the final threat. Ancient people were also free from certain modern risks. They did not smoke manufactured tobacco products, breathe industrial chemicals, or live primarily on heavily processed foods. They ate whole foods and remained physically active throughout most of their lives. But their world was far from a healthy paradise. Constant exposure to smoke from indoor fires could chronically irritate and damage their lungs. Parasitic infections and long-term inflammation may also have increased the risk of certain cancers. Years of intense sunlight without protection could contribute to skin cancer as well. Ancient humans were never truly protected from cancer. They simply had far more immediate threats waiting to kill them first. So why does cancer seem to be everywhere in the modern world? The first reason is that people are simply living much longer than they once did. Modern medicine has eliminated or controlled many of the infections, injuries, and diseases that used to kill people early in life. Today, millions of people survive into their 60s, 70s, and 80s. Those are precisely the decades when the risk of developing cancer rises dramatically. The second reason is that we have become far better at finding it. Modern imaging technology can detect a tumor no larger than a grain of rice hidden deep inside the human body. Physicians in the ancient world could only identify cancers that were visible from the outside or large enough to be felt through the skin. Most internal cancers remained completely invisible to them and were never diagnosed. The third reason is that some modern risks are very real. Tobacco directly contributes to cancers of the lungs, throat, and mouth. Processed red meat has been linked to colorectal cancer. Obesity is associated with more than a dozen different types of the disease. These connections are real, well documented, and impossible to ignore. But one of the most fascinating clues about cancer does not come from humans at all. It comes from elephants. Elephants rarely develop cancer, which seems almost impossible when you consider their biology. They are enormous animals with billions more cells than humans, and they can live for many decades. In theory, more cells and a longer lifespan should create more opportunities for dangerous mutations to appear. Elephants should develop more cancer than humans, not less. Their protection may come from additional copies of a tumor-suppressing gene called TP53. Humans carry 2 copies of this gene, while elephants have around 20. Scientists are now studying this natural defense system in hopes of developing better treatments for human cancer. Nature has been confronting this problem for millions of years. Sometimes the smartest thing science can do is ask how nature managed to solve it. The fossil record offers another valuable path toward understanding the disease. By comparing tumors found in ancient bones with those seen in modern patients, researchers can track how certain cancers changed over time and identify the conditions that may have encouraged them. A 1.7-million-year-old bone, a malignant tumor growing inside a creature that lived before civilization, before recorded language, and perhaps even before humanity learned to control fire. Cancer was already there. It is one of the oldest enemies our species has ever faced. But for the first time in that long struggle, humanity possesses technology capable of detecting it, identifying it, and in many cases, stopping it.